Let's talk about this wide receiver class. So, in the 2024 NFL draft, we have a lot of wide receivers that make this an extremely deep class where you're going to be finding guys to play your wide receiver 3 role well into day 3. And we all know like this top 4. We know about like the Xavier Legette, the Adonai Mitchell. We hear all about them. And this class goes so much deeper than that. There are guys across the board here where I just get excited about just imagining them pairing up with a CJ Stroud or a Justin Herbert, and the Chargers in particular with Justin Herbert. There's this list is endless in the amount of wide receivers I would be excited to see the Chargers go for. We talk about Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. all the time being like those 2 picks in the top 5 at pick 5 that you need, that a lot of fans need them to go get. Like it's insane right now how unanimous it is. It's take one of those receivers, please, 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 God, make sure the Chargers take one of these 2 receivers. And I would love to see it, but there is a scenario there where they trade down. There is a scenario there where they take a tackle at 5. Um, but it's not the end of the world. There are receivers in this draft that are phenomenal players. And I'm excited to talk about some of them today. There are some guys here that I really want to talk about because I think they fit what the Chargers need. I mean, the Chargers need every type of receiver right now. It's pick one, right? Just find one that's good and pick them. The Chargers need that type. And I have a list of 29 receivers, and I think I'm pretty much done at this point. I think I'm done looking for more. I might find one more, and I might save that one more for a good one, to make it a rounded 30. But I've done a lot of work on these 29, some more than others, most less than others. Where I'm confident in where it's at right now. I'm confident that these guys are draftable, that they will be drafted. I'm confident that I'm just confident with where the list is right now. I don't think I need to go and dig deeper for more. I'm sure I could, and I'm sure there's more out there that will surprise and heading into the season, and I'll miss out on a couple, and other people will get to raise their hands and say, "Hey, I found this one. I found this one. I saw this one." Um, but I'm pretty confident with where it's at right now. And we're going to talk about 6 or 7 here today as like good picks for the Chargers, good sleeper selections later for the Chargers. Not so much that like round 2 crowd where everybody talks about, the Xavier Legette, Jermaine Burton, Adonai Mitchell, Roman Wilson, Troy Franklin. I'm going to kind of avoid that group right here. And we'll get an opportunity to talk about those guys real quick here if we haven't already before this video comes out. Where I'm going to be doing mock drafts over the coming month, leading up to the draft, where we will get an opportunity to talk about these other receivers, and I'm excited to talk about them because they're good, right? But these 7 guys I have listed right here, and I don't know if we'll get to all 7. It might be 5, it might be 6. We'll see. But these guys right here are the guys I was most excited to talk about. And it starts with one, and this isn't the one I'm most excited about. That'll come next. But this first one reminds me a lot of what I liked about Jaden Reed last year, coming out of Michigan State. And it's UCF wide receiver Javon Baker. And I'm just going to list some of Javon Baker's like premium stats here, his advanced stats. These come from PFF. I just want to read some of them off because they're ridiculous. Because if you see him as like this 4th round prospect, like I so often see him as like late 3rd, early 4th, I see him available there all the time. I see him taken there all the time. But if you look at 3.21 yards per route run, 7.2 yards after the catch per reception, 17.1 average depth of target, 56.3 contested catch percentage, and he's a good run blocker. Those all match up with the first round projected players more so, way more so than the third, fourth, even the second round guys. For comparison's sake, here's a guy who I've often seen late first, early second in Adonai Mitchell. And we'll just put them side by side. In fact, I'm gonna copy paste them into a note, and I'm gonna show you, because I'm gonna put them side by side, and you can decide for yourself, right? Like, Javon Baker probably belongs up there in that conversation, but I'll just read them out here. For Adonai Mitchell, 1.72 yards per route run, 3.2 yards after the catch per reception, with a 16-yard average depth of target. That's solid. 1.8% drop. He has a way better hands. Adonai Mitchell has much better hands. 1.8% in terms of drop percentage. 36.4 contested catch percentage. Mitchell has terrific body control, and 6 missed tackles forced. Now, there is some misleading stuff here with Mitchell, right? I think his tape is much better than his numbers, but there are downsides to Mitchell. And we're not here to talk about Mitchell, and I'm not going to list my negatives for Mitchell. But for Javon Baker, you know, you match him up, and maybe I'll add another third prospect on here as I edit this. He belongs up there. He does, and he belongs up there he fits up there better than he fits down in the third and fourth round range that we see him so often. I'm a big fan of Baker. I made a tweet earlier this year about Mike Williams where, you know, Mike Williams might not get a lot of separation, but best believe he'll hit the double backflip and make the most ridiculous catch, break every bone in his body in the process to come down with that football. Javon Baker has a lot of that to his game. He has a lot of ridiculous circus catches to his game. A little better at separating than Mike Williams coming out of college, I think. The only issue I have with Baker that you can knock him for 100% are concentration drops. Hands are not the issue. It's not. He has ridiculous hands. He makes ridiculous catches all the time. It's concentration drops, and the Chargers have one of those. That's where you get a little bit of concern there is, well, you drafted a guy last year with a 10% drop percentage, right? Are you going to do that again? But Javon Baker offers way, way, way more in terms of contested catches and yards per route run than Quentin Johnston did in 2023. But in the 2023 draft, that is. And, you know, Javon Baker is like a true deep threat in this class. I'm a huge fan of Javon Baker, what he brings to the table. That contested catch percentage is big for me as well because it shows up on tape. I highly encourage you guys to go watch Javon Baker's tape because some of the passes that he comes up with, I'll show a few on here actually, are just frankly ridiculous. He's a human highlight reel, and a lot of the same reasons I loved Jaden Reed last year, I love Javon Baker for those same reasons. Big fan of his, and I'm excited to see where he goes. Again, listed some of those numbers. He is a good run blocker as well. PFF has him at a 64.9 run block grade, which is pretty good for a wide receiver. A lot of those grades end up just being don't do anything wrong. So anything north of 60 is it means they limited their mistakes in that regard. Up next, we have probably the prospect I'm most excited for in this class, and that is Malik Washington. I am extremely excited about Malik Washington. I think, all right, so let's just get into the conversation immediately. Malik Washington out of Virginia and a 92.4 receiving grade per PFF. 3.15 yards per route run, 6.4 yards after the catch per reception, only an 8.1 average depth of target. So 8.1 yards was his average depth of target, and great hands with a 2.6 drop percentage, and actually showcased some contested catchability. And it's really fun to watch on tape too, how he comes down with those footballs with a 64.7 contested catch percentage. And probably the most striking thing here is, and he's the leader in this category among the guys I listed, among the 29 receivers that I have on this list, he's the leader with 35 missed tackles forced. I don't know if he's the leader overall in college football, but in my list, 35 missed tackles forced. Um, Simply put here, Malik Washington showcases a lot of good things as a slot receiver. A little bit on the shorter side, but showcases a lot of technical refinement to his route running, showcases a lot of effort in the contested catch situations, bullies some guys for the football. It reminds you a little bit of Josh Downs last year, got drafted to the Colts. Same thing, very aggressive at the catch point and very good after the catch as well, and making guys miss. Just an absolute baller at wide receiver. I was really happy to stumble upon his tape. He was one of the earliest wide receivers that I found, and I was super excited to watch him. And I'm super excited to see where he goes as well, because if he finds himself a team that utilizes that yards after the catch ability, but also just allows him to be an intermediate route runner. There a lot of those missed tackles forced did not come at the line of scrimmage. A lot of them came after catching a dig or a slant or like a curl route or even like a post and making the guy miss down the field. It didn't just come in smoke screens and short hitches or drags. A lot of it didn't come from that. A few did, but a lot of it was from running a dig and making the safety miss, or running a slant and making a linebacker miss, or making a corner miss on a curl route. It was a lot of that was where it came from. And so Malik Washington is a guy I'm really excited about because he offers you that route running to take advantage of the intermediate part of the field. I think that's where he makes his money as a route runner, is in those intermediate routes. And then he takes advantage of getting more yards off of that. A lot of times you have your yak guys that get good explosive plays or missed tackles forced on the drags or on the smoke routes. Malik Washington is a lot different in the sense that he gets them on the digs, on the intermediates. And that's kind of a rare thing that I haven't seen too much of when scouting wide receivers. It's kind of like a unique thing for him. And I'm excited to see how that translates to the NFL level. So another guy we have here that I really want to talk about is Taj Washington out of USC. Now, Taj Washington, he has the numbers to back up his tape, and the tape is fun. He's a great deep threat. I think a lot of people have kind of said he's that Tank Dell type. I think they're a little different than that, but you talk about somebody who can take a slant and take it to the house. You talk about a guy who can get open to the deep part of the field, who has the speed, who has like that electric playmaking ability. I talked about yards after the catch with Malik Washington, who had 6.4 yards after the catch per reception. Taj Washington had 8.6, so 2.2 higher. And not as many missed tackles forced with 18, but, you talk about, where he's often mocked in like that 5th, 6th round range. Like I see him in the 5th a lot. 3.06 yards per route run with a 10.7 yard average depth of target. He does not drop the football a lot. Is a willing participant in the run game, but is not somebody you're getting to be a run blocker by any means. He struggles a little bit in that regard, but a really fun electric player out of USC. One of those smaller builds who, frankly, has to avoid getting touched, and he does it well. One thing to do if you're a small receiver is just don't get touched. Don't let them get their hands on you. And Taj Washington does that really well. Was super happy to watch his tape and was pleasantly surprised by his game. Strong receiving grade from PFF with an 85. You're going to see that all on the screen here, but so you can go in and review the numbers yourself. But everything you see here from Taj Washington, pretty much translates the tape on the plays that you're seeing as well. And was just really pleasantly surprised to find yet another receiver, yet another sleeper that I see ranked way too low in this class, and somebody who offers something at the next level. So give Taj Washington a closer look if you want to do a little more homework on those mid rounds, and it probably will not disappoint you because absolutely terrific receiver to watch. So up next, we're going to talk about Southeast Missouri's Ryan Flournoy. So this is one I found a little late. Saw a little bit of hype around him after the Senior Bowl. I don't think he did anything crazy during the Senior Bowl, but that's how I learned his name was over the Senior Bowl, and I went back and watched some of his tape. This is a guy that's probably the best run blocker we've talked about so far, and is maybe the best run blocker in this class, up there with some of Keon Coleman's high points as a run blocker. Ryan Flournoy is a terrific run blocker, and when you watch his tape, he's somebody that Southeast Missouri definitely tried to move around a lot. He used the sideline a lot. A lot of his grabs came on comebacks and out routes and crossing routes against the sideline. He's really good at using his body to frame out the DB and using the sideline to kind of like toe tap. That's one of his best utilization of his skill set that he has. He has an 80.6 receiving grade per PFF, 2.64 yards per route run, 7.5 yards after the catch per reception, with an 11.4 yards average depth of target, 1.7 drop percentage, 35 contested catch percentage, and 24 missed tackles forced. He does force those missed tackles. Doesn't really do anything insane after the fact. It's usually just going to get him an extra couple of yards. So the 24, it's a little misleading, but it's not, because those extra yards are important. It often came in points where he would fight for the first down or get the first down, is make a man miss and then get that extra 4 or 5 yards he needs to get it. But there wasn't really that like breakaway. There were some, but it's more the fault of the defense, I would say, than him just being like superstar player. But he had really solid tape, and I like the way he utilized the sideline. I like the way he used his frame to beat DBs. Really like the way that Southeast Missouri moved him around, allowed him to excel in his role. I like the way he took advantage and understood the gaps in the defense. That's a little more rare when you're talking about a guy who's projected to go as late as he is in terms of finding those soft spots in the zones. That was a little surprising to me because usually once we get to this area, you start to see that go away. You start to see that understanding of defenses kind of diminish a little bit as you get to those late round guys. But not here. Ryan Flournoy, terrific with it. And really no concerns to his game that make you step back and say like, yeah, that's not, he shouldn't be ranked highly. I ranked him about in the middle of my 29 receivers. He doesn't have a hands issue. Maybe you could say his contested catch ability isn't the best. He more so relies on body control rather than like just dunking on DBs. More so just him reacting to the ball faster, relying on DBs not having their head turned around. More so relies on that sort of thing rather than both of them having eyes on the ball and fighting for it. And in terms of fighting for the football, I would say a lot of guys do it a lot better than him. But as a technician, as a guy who understands zones, I really like Ryan Flournoy. I think he has something to offer at the next level. I was pleasantly surprised going and watching his tape, and I was glad that the Senior Bowl kind of brought him to the spotlight a little bit for me because I wouldn't have found out about him otherwise. So one that I was saving towards the end, and I really want to talk about now is Smoke Harris out of Louisiana Tech. So Smoke Harris, he's only listed at 5'7", um, has a 3.5 yard average depth of target and a 2.3% drop percentage. And you're going to have a low drop percentage if you're only getting the ball a yard to 3 yards out from the line of scrimmage. This dude was a missed tackles force machine, probably because he had so many opportunities to do it, being only a 3.5 ADOT. He had 32 missed tackles forced. He's a very willing participant in the run game. He will make blocks as best as he can. PFF graded him as a 66.9 run block grade, and they gave him a 75 receiving grade. He had 7.7 yards after the catch per reception and 2 yards per route run. And everything I've listed here for Smoke Harris, it's all well and okay, but it's really just his ability to make dudes miss that kind of drew my eye. He's not going to get you contested catches. He's not going to be this intermediate guy, this deep threat. That's not his game. He's very much like this. I would consider him as like maybe purely a gadget player, purely like a returner. Like he has that to offer. But I thought his tape was so much fun because it was like Malachi Corley, but 5'7", and an insane amount of missed tackles forced, and really that's what drew my eye and made me watch his tape. So probably one of the deeper pulls you'll find from me in terms of this draft class is Smoke Harris out of Louisiana Tech, but he was just so fun to watch, and I feel like I just needed to um, share his name out here in terms of draft prospects that you could go find, seventh rounder UDFA. I know for the Chargers, they have Darius Davis, so not a lot of room for more guys like that, but was just somebody I had a lot of fun watching and wanted to share on here. So excited to see where he goes and what he brings to the table on a team. But somebody I do like for the Chargers and somebody I do want is Jacob Cowing out of Arizona. So Cowing doesn't have the numbers I thought he would, and they're listed here. Receiving grade of 77.2 per PFF, only 1.92 yards per route run, only 5.8 yards after the catch per reception, and an average depth of target of 6.7 yards. Doesn't drop the football too much, but it's kind of in the middle of the pack with a 6.3 drop percentage, and is okay in contested catch situations, and also not a very like great run blocker. Now, the numbers don't look great, but Jacob Cowing is one of those players where, you look at the grade and you look at the tape, and there's two different stories here, right? Similar to like Keon Coleman, where you look at those numbers and you're just like, ugh, right? But you look at the tape and it's a very different story. And Jacob Cowing is very similar to that. So Jacob Cowing did remind me of that Tank Dell build, that Tank Dell type player coming out of college. And he's somebody who offers a little bit more in terms of the route running, in terms of like how I've mentioned that technical refinement, and knows how to attack leverage really well, or attain leverage really well, and attack DBs to attain that leverage. And leverage is, I don't want to just assume that leverage is a known. Let me show you. I'll paint it. We're gonna use some Microsoft Paint here. All right, so let me go to the smaller cam and pull my screen up here. So we'll put the quarterback. We'll put the quarterback right here, and we'll put the receiver right here, and put this DB here. So this is like a balanced, there's no leverage here in terms of like he's not shading inside and he's not shading outside. It's pretty balanced, right? The corner is just off man coverage, even with the receiver. So this is where, you talk about release packages, you talk about variety in the release, their first step. This is what you're talking about, right? And I'm going to show you right here as best I can on Microsoft Paint. This is where the receiver has the most to work with. So You can run straight and then push vertical, right? You can sell vertical, and that's kind of like what that lip is right there. He's selling vertical. And then once that DB flips his hips this way, that receiver can cut across, cut inside. And now there's that window, that throwing lane between the receiver and the quarterback, right? Where this corner no longer has that ability. So you might as well say that the receiver is right here and the corner is right here. Well, that's an easy throwing window, right? You can work with that. And then that's when the quarterback will kind of lead that throw like right here. And there's no way that DB shouldn't make that play before the receiver can get it right there. The great DBs do. That's when you see those like great DBs like Sauce Gardner, the guys that can disrupt those plays. And with Cowing, and I'll draw this out too. Cowing is one of those receivers who kind of understands it a little bit early before he gets to the league, where say you have this scenario presented to you where corners inside shade. Keenan Allen was really good at this for the Chargers. This is where we talk about route art, like their arsenal route in terms of their release packages, their first step. So what a lot of receivers do is, or the ones that know how to beat this, is sell inside, push up, or not sell inside, but first step inside to kind of like even things out a little bit, right? So now you're balanced. Sell up field, and maybe you still give that move, maybe not, but you sell up, kind of lean into the DB if you can. If not, you're going to sell vertical, get him to flip his hips, and then bring it inside. And you're essentially achieving the same thing. It's just a lengthier process. How fast can you do it? How can you pace your route to sell that to the DB so that he doesn't just go inside with you a little bit, right? Then you have outside shade, and this is just really where everything's open to you, where you just kind of like go and lean into the corner and then cut across, right? And that's a lot easier. That's what you mean by leverage, right? So you have your play call, and we'll say that play call indicates that this receiver is running a quick slant. And you know that this DB is outside shade. Well, this quarterback knows he has a throwing window right here. Wide receiver will lean into it, cut across. So that's what I meant by leverage. I didn't want to assume that leverage was a widely known, I wanted to do a very basic, very simple description of it. So for those of you who already know what it is and know a lot more than just that, sorry for that waste of time for you. But just wanted to do a very basic thing about like leverages and how to attain it if it's not presented to you pre-snap, right? And Jacob Cowing does that extremely well. Did it extremely well in Arizona, and I think is a little more, that's a little more pro-ready than other receivers. I don't have him ranked as high as a lot of this list, but if you're looking for that late round guy who maybe has a little bit of a step ahead of some other guys in terms of being able to attain that leverage, that's that you feel a little more comfortable making that pick in round 6 or 7, and is somebody I sure as heck would love to have on my football team if I have a quarterback like Justin Herbert who can diagnose that leverage and communicate with that receiver in that regard. That's 6 guys so far, and there's one more that I kind of want to talk about. He was a standout in the Senior Bowl, so I guess we'll touch up on him here. Won't talk too long about him. But Jamari Thrash out of Louisville, and the reason I was unsure if I want to talk about him or not is just because I know he is a little more known, especially after that Senior Bowl. One of the two, I know he was more known after that, well known after that. He had a really good day. But I'm going to post his stats up here. These are advanced stats, and show some of his PFF grades and just talk about him a little bit. You saw in that Senior Bowl week or Shrine Bowl, I'll figure it out, that there was a little more to Jamari Thrash than people expected, because there was a little bit more of that route running there than they did expect. And there is a drop issue here. Very concentration, like very similar to Javon Baker, concentration drops. There's a drop issue here with Jamari Thrash, but the other numbers around it and the tape around it, could lead a team to say, hey, that doesn't concern us too much. We'll do our best to coach that up and go with what he shows promise in moving forward. And, it's up to you whether you want to like Jamari Thrash or not. I really like his game. I would personally take the chance on him. I know plenty of people who wouldn't, and that's okay. It's just your taste of receiver. But I think he does offer you a good enough separation, good enough route running, good enough ability to just make it an easy catch, right? And it's the issue is when the catch gets there. But the drop issues aren't like horribly bad. It's just they're there. And so with Jamari Thrash, I feel like I'm saying all these negative things about him. He's a great football player. He's a great receiver. He shows a lot of potential. He shows that separation. He shows that route running. He shows the missed tackles forced. He had 17 missed tackles forced. He's a good run blocker. He is a really solid run blocker. Not a good hands guy, right? It's just the contested catch isn't going to be there, and the drops are going to be an issue early, and it's about whether or not he can iron those out. And so that's kind of why I wanted to have a conversation about him towards the end here. Didn't know if I wanted to include him or not, but because he's not really a sleeper, but in the sense that I think he's rated right around where he should be. But in the sense of how he can fit with certain teams, he could be, So we'll end it there. Those are my sleeper receivers in this draft, or not so much sleeper receivers, but receivers I just really wanted to point out in this draft. Some of my favorite wide receiver prospects. I hope that the information is useful. I hope that the stats posted were useful. I hope that you enjoyed the plays I showcased here. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this format. If you do, let me know so that I can keep this format going. Introduce this format kind of last video I posted talking about some sleeper free agents. So if you guys want to see this format keep going, or if you want to see it more streamlined, I guess, then let me know. Just any suggestions you guys have. This is a new thing for me, so I'll work through it. But just let me know what you guys think, how I can improve it, what I can remove, take away from it. And as we get to this draft, as we get closer, we're going to start going through mocks. We're going to talk about the rest of these guys. I promise we will. Receivers, my favorite position to prep. In terms of pre-draft prep, I love talking receivers. I love going over receivers. That's like my bread and butter. I love the receiver position. But I do have to do more homework on the running backs too. We still have to talk about that. Linebackers, I just started dipping my toes in linebackers today, actually, earlier today. So lots of work to do moving up to this draft, and I feel like I'm in a good spot for the position groups I have. And as we start getting through mocks, which we're going to do a lot, I'm excited to do some mocks as we get closer and closer. Hopefully I get one up before this video is even posted. If not, then it'll be shortly thereafter. And I'm excited to talk about the prospects as we go down the mock. I would love to be more deliberate in saying, hey, we have this spot open at 37. Here's who's available and here's what they do well. I would love to get those mock drafts going. So keep tuned for that. And I'm excited to get close to this draft. I'm excited to see what we do for the draft. That can be a fun one as well. So this has been Blueprints. I'm your host, Jason, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Have a good one.